Thank you, Nigel. Thank you, Terry, for that informative interview on deforestation. With that, we're now at our final session. And this is an incredibly important topic and in a fantastic lineup to deliver the topic as well. We're covering putting sustainability pledges into practice, so making that all-important roadmap for the decade of action. Euan Murray of the Sustainability Consortium will be leading this discussion, and there's C-suite execs from Unilever, Google, and L'Oreal. Over to you, Euan.
Fantastic, thanks very much, and hi everybody. My name's Euan Murray. I'm the Chief Executive of the Sustainability Consortium, the global non-profit with a mission to make all consumer products sustainable. So I'm joined today by really an amazing panel. They'll get a chance to introduce themselves shortly, but I'd like to add my welcome to Kate Brandt from Google, Marc Engel from Unilever, and Raquel Purcell from L'Oreal USA. Now, you're going to hear a lot from us in this session, but we also want to hear from you so that this is as interactive as possible. I'm sure you've already been using Slido whenever you have a question, but please do that again for our session here. And I'll curate all those questions and we'll get those to the panelists later on. So, to our topic. Well, I guess the elephant in the room before we really dive in is coronavirus. And of course, this last year of the pandemic has been hard. But for many of us, we have discovered that we are stronger than we thought we were. We've kept going, we've adapted, and really without much notice, we have retooled our companies and our economies and our societies. And for each of us personally, we've juggled new working patterns and locations, maybe navigated community lockdowns and Zoom socials, cared for friends, relatives, neighbors, and maybe even done some homeschool as well. And really we've shown that we can be resourceful and resilient. Now, the history books will definitely remember this year for its tragedies, but I think there's also many reasons for hope and lessons for our future too. First and foremost, we've learned that if we are focused and motivated and savvy, we really can achieve amazing things. And really that's what we need with sustainability. We know what needs to be done. Many companies are stepping up to say that they will play their part. They've set 1.5 degree net zero climate targets, committed to reversing deforestation and biodiversity loss, stepped up on diversity, equity and inclusion, and so much more. But of course, then comes the hard part, turning those commitments into action. So how's it all going? Well, I'm going to ask each of our panelists now to quickly introduce themselves and to outline their sustainability journey that they're on. I'd also really love to hear from them the achievement they're most proud of and also the biggest challenge they're facing. So Kate, let's start with you.
Wonderful. Such a pleasure to be with you all. So I am Kate Brandt. I'm Google's Sustainability Officer, and I lead sustainability across our worldwide operations, products, and supply chains. Before coming to Google, I was the Federal Chief Sustainability Officer in the Obama White House. And I think for me, one of the things that brought me to Google to do this work and keeps me here and tremendously excited about the privilege of what we get to do is I am a huge believer in the role of our technology in enabling and accelerating progress on climate change. And so, to your question, what is our climate strategy? Well, we last year in September announced what we think of as our third decade of climate action. And we have basically three pillars to how we're thinking about climate. So first, we want to lead at Google. We are striving to become the first company to operate on carbon-free energy by 2030, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so for us, this is about shifting away from a model that's more of a net zero approach where we sort of emit and compensate. And instead, what we're really striving for is absolute zero emissions in our operations. And so, what does that mean for someone who uses Gmail or watches a YouTube video? That means that all of our products will be supplied with clean energy every hour of every day by 2030. Now, the second element of this is we're also thinking far beyond Google. We want to enable our partners to also reach their climate goals. So this could be nonprofits, it could be our cloud customers, or city governments. And one example is that we are committed to helping over 500 cities to reduce a gigaton of carbon emissions by 2030. And this is through our tool called the Environmental Insights Explorer. And then lastly, we have an unbelievable privilege at Google, which is that we have products that over 1 billion people use every day. And so we have made a commitment that we want to enable 1 billion people to take new steps to reduce their environmental footprint by 2022. And we just made a recent announcement that shows the kinds of things we're going to be doing in the space, which is that later this year in the US, Google Maps will start offering eco-friendly routes as the default solution. So if you type in a route and it has a similar ETA, we will give you the least carbon intensive route. And we are, very united behind these goals. And in fact, we're already making good progress. We just announced our 24/7 carbon-free energy commitment last September, and our CEO Sundar shared for Earth Day that 5 of our data centers around the world are already 90% plus of the way there. So we're very proud of that. But to your question about challenges, this is a very challenging target that we've set for ourselves. We like to think about moonshots at Google. This is truly a moonshot for us. It's on par with building a quantum computer or developing a self-driving car. And so this will require us to double down on the work that we've already done on renewable energy, but it will require new technology. It will require things like large-scale batteries, which we're just beginning to pilot at our data centers. It will require shifting how we operate our business, shifting how the compute works inside of our data centers. So it's a big challenge, but we're up for it, and we're very excited to share our progress as we move forward.
Fantastic, Kate. Thank you. You've certainly laid out the scale of the challenge and what you're trying to do there. Marc, let's come to you for the Unilever perspective, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Euan, for inviting us. A pleasure to be here. My name is Marc Engel, and I'm the Chief Supply Chain Officer for Unilever. So I run all Unilever's operations to do with product supply and distribution. For us, it's been we believe that responsible and sustainable business are drivers of superior performance. Let me start with that. We very clearly see that our brands that have a strong purpose, and what do I mean by that? Brands that are good for you, but are also good for the planet and are good for society, brands that dare to take positions on difficult societal issues, they actually do grow much faster than our brands that don't yet have a strong purpose. And so that was the sentiment for a long time in Unilever. We launched our first environmental report in 1994. We created the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan in 2010. That was a 10-year journey. And we more recently have launched our Unilever Compass, which is the next 10-year journey until 2030 and beyond. And in that compass, which is the plan for the next 10 years, we launched commitments centered on climate action, and being net zero by 2039, including all of the scopes, the protection and regeneration of nature. We have a land footprint of about 3.5 million hectares. Land, soil, forest, biodiversity, water security is important for us. We launched a commitment around a waste-free world, particularly plastic, which is an important area for us. And we complemented that with a set of social commitment and societal commitments, by setting out how we plan to use our scale and influence to build a more equitable and inclusive society. And you've got to think about creating livelihoods, driving equity, and planning for the future of work. And so, getting everyone to earn a living wage or living income by 2030, everybody in our value chain, extended value chain, or spending 2 billion euros with suppliers with diverse ownership or management or employees, or help create 10 million jobs for youth. In January, we were the first company that voluntarily put a climate transition plan for an advisory vote to our shareholders. And just hours ago, it was actually voted in by 99.6%. We're very happy with that, because it is, of course, important in multi-stakeholder models that the stakeholder that actually owns the company backs your multi-stakeholder plans. So it's a big milestone for us. And sustainability at Unilever is at the heart of our business. It's at the heart of our brands. It's at the heart of our people. And you know, you have people that say, oh, what is the cost of all of this? And we simply believe that that's the wrong question, because returns and benefits come in many shape or forms: more trust, more brand preference, more growth, less brand risk, are to name but a few. So, you know, I think our success is that we've been at this journey for a very long time. You know, 1994 first environmental report. Some of our challenges is, I think the biggest challenge is that, you know, you cannot just focus on one. In order to fight one crisis, you have to resolve all of it. So it's the breadth of a program between climate and societal issues, and delivering on that all at the same time. I would say that is probably one of the key challenges that we see in front of us.
Great, thank you, Marc. You know, the level of ambition there is great, and I really like how you framed that. Reminds me of something I heard one of your colleagues say recently, which is that we need to stop asking about the business case for sustainability, and we need to start asking about the sustainability case for business, and weaving that into every day is super important. Thank you. Rahquel, please, for the L'Oreal USA perspective.
Yes, hi everyone. Again, an honor to be with you and to participate on this panel and join in the sincere commitment and very aggressive goals and focus. So I'm Raquel Purcell. I'm the Chief Operations Officer for North America. And L'Oreal's commitment to sustainability is not new, of course. It's been over a very strong history of 25 years across a multitude of different programs. Most recently, we ended our Sharing Beauty with All program in 2020, which set some very bold targets on waste, water, and CO2, but importantly demonstrated that we can be bold and successful in our corporate ambitions while at the same time being good to the environment. So the program life was between 2013 and 2020. During that time, so I'll combine your question, Euan, we're very excited. We reduced CO2 by 80% at a time when we grew our sales by more than 30%. And so from there, we actually amplified the program and created an even broader framework, which we call L'Oreal for the Future. And so appropriate and important as we enter into this decade of delivery and decade of action. And so the L'Oreal for the Future program really has three elements to it. We will continue, without question, working against some very bold ambitions. Again, not only on water, waste, and CO2, targeting to be 100% use of recycled water across all of our operations by 2030, being 100% CO2 at all of our sites by 2025, and to include both scope 1, 2, and 3 impacts as we onboard consumers and suppliers to this important mission, which is the second part of the L'Oreal for the Future program, which is extending to our ecosystem of business partners. We can't do this without them, right? And so with our customers, with our suppliers, really being bold and partnering and innovating boldly, co-innovating, and we can talk more about some of the tools in which we're excited that we have developed that allow us to measure. For us, that's a very key pillar, the ability to validate your impact with clear metrics going forward. And then the third one, of course, is a financial commitment, right? Continuing to invest boldly in initiatives, both internally, but in partnership with different foundations and partners. So again, happy to be on the panel, whether you're a competitor or not, right? This is an opportunity for solidarity, and it takes the best of all of our thought leadership to really make an impact in the environments and the communities that we live and serve.
Fantastic. Thanks, Rahquel. I want to come to you with my first question here. You touched on that a little bit, this idea that you've looked internally first. You have to be able to walk the walk before you can talk the talk with suppliers. You know, what do you have to do to build credibility, to be able to engage them in a constructive way? And then what does that allow you to go on and do?
Yeah, so, you know, the L'Oreal for the Future program I really want to emphasize, as L'Oreal, it's about our brands, right? And so the brands create the connection with the consumer and really bring this aspiration to life. So very proud, very recently, L'Oreal for the L'Oreal Paris, Lancôme and Garnier have recently announced the full program ambition, and we are very proud to support that. Across operations and in partnership with R&I, the way we bring this to life is through the SPOT tool. So this is the Sustainable Product Optimization tool. And the beauty of this is it allows us to measure both the sustainable and societal impacts that our new launches have on the environment and the communities with which we live and serve. And for us, these two things, they're in sync, right? You can't separate them. They're not mutually exclusive. So this allows us to measure that impact through the entire product life cycle. There are actually 14 sustainable criteria, from beginning with the packaging that is used, the ingredients in the formula, how we produce this product, the level of water, for example, that we use inside of our facilities. Of course, also measuring the impact that consumers will make on the environment when using our product. And this is a really important enhancement. And, as we start to extend into level 2 and level 3, right, impacts of our product. And then finally, the recyclability of the product. And the power of the SPOT tool is that it creates a common language inside of L'Oreal. So whether you're in marketing, whether you're in R&I, whether you're in operations, right, we are all very clear on, one, the strategic importance, which is connected to measurable impacts, and then our role to play throughout that product life cycle. So extremely powerful. And the second piece is that part of walking the talk is that we have made this available. It is available to our suppliers and many of our co-conspirators in the beauty industry, because again, the opportunity is to collaborate and to innovate boldly in the name of sustainability. So for us, this is an important part of walking the talk, because you can measure your impact. And because we can do that, we don't hesitate to set very bold ambitions, even if we don't always know how to do it from the beginning, right? Because this embodies the L'Oreal spirit. Our teams, we rise to the occasion. And so there are some very aggressive targets that we've set.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think we're all in that same place where being a sustainability leader does often feel like you're just slightly out there, maybe a bit out of the comfort zone, but it's the right place to be, because that's what it takes to really find the innovative opportunity, to create that camaraderie you need to bring everyone along ultimately. So no, that's great to hear. You touched on the importance of consumers there in being part of the solution. Kate, I want to come back to you, and in your opening remarks, you mentioned what you've done with Google Maps in enabling people just to make the more sustainable choice and to have that be the default. What sort of role does Google have in shaping what people think about sustainability and then in acting on that across the sort of myriad of touch points you have with each of our lives? How do you think about that in the round?
Yes, and as I mentioned, we have this unbelievable privilege that we have products that are reaching 1 billion people every day. And so we're thinking about how do we utilize this opportunity to give people helpful information in their daily lives to live more sustainably. And I think what we're finding is that if you give people the information and the tools that they need, they want to make the more sustainable choice. And so sort of a few different examples I would share beyond maps. The Nest Learning Thermostat. Probably many folks are familiar with these. Maybe you even have one on the wall in your house. With the thermostat, we want to make it really easy for people to better understand their heating and their cooling, and how can they make a choice that's going to make that more efficient. So you'll see right on the thermostat, there's a green leaf giving you that recommendation for, hey, you can go into eco mode. Similarly, you will provide our customers with other just helpful hints that they can use at home to drive greater energy efficiency across the board. And thanks to the Nest thermostat, over the last several years, we have enabled people to reduce 47 billion kilowatt hours of energy. This could power the city City of San Francisco, which is right down the road from where I am, for 8 years. Similarly, as we think about transportation, this is a huge opportunity to give people more sustainable choices. So I talked about the green routes, the default least carbon intensive routes in maps. We also offer great information for people on EV charging infrastructure that might be available near them as they're driving around and might need to charge their car, or bike shares. And not only where is the bike share, but actually is there a bike available in the stall at that moment where you might need it. Also Google Flights in select European countries. For now, we're offering carbon emissions data that enables people to sort their flights based on the least carbon intensive route. So again, just providing that helpful information that can enable that more sustainable choice. And then we're also thinking about it on the customer side of the house. So in our cloud business, I mentioned we have our 24/7 carbon-free energy target. We already have 5 data centers around the world that are 90% plus of the way there. So we're giving our cloud customers the option to select the cloud region where the work is being done. And so they can select a region where it's less carbon intensive if that's a priority for them. So those are just a few examples of how we're really trying to provide those helpful choices.
Fantastic, fantastic. And I think, as we all know, that ability to go out and influence the wider world is really the key to taking commitments to the next level. It's really great to see. You touched on one of my favorite subjects. I know this is the last session of the day, but we wouldn't be doing this justice if we didn't talk about carbon accounting in one way or the other. Marc, I want to hit this to you, where you've set really a phenomenal, ambitious net zero target. Many other companies are doing the same. Of course, the first part of that is to drive reductions, but then often these strategies require some sort of offsetting. How are you making sure that these are genuinely delivering carbon savings? And also, how do you think about this in the context of what everyone needs to do? Basically making sure that there's enough space for other companies, cities, countries, and citizens to be part of that too.
Yeah. No, thanks. I just wanted to sort of pick up with your last point on, there is no net zero by 2050 when the consumer is not leading net zero lives. And I think Kate picked up on that, because it is shocking how ill-informed the consumer is about the choices that she can make to lead more carbon neutral lives. And if I take Unilever, we have a carbon footprint of 100 million tons, but 2/3 of that footprint is actually in your home. When you make your cup of tea, or when you use your freezer energy to keep magnums in, or when you wash your clothes with Purcell, that is 2/3 of the total footprint related to our product as you use our product in the house. So it is incredibly important to take that angle into account. And what Rahquel said, we live in a world, Rahquel and I are in a very similar business. We live in a world where you basically innovate 25% of your product portfolio every year. So it's very important to drive that innovation. I think to the first part of your question, the killer question is going to be, in a net zero world, how big is the net? And do we have enough nature-based and technology solutions to accommodate all of these offsets? Because if everybody continues to emit as they are today, and just thinks that they can buy their way out of the problem by buying some offsets, buying someone else's carbon credits, we're going to run out of the planet pretty quickly. And so, we have basically said our priority is to reduce our emission in absolute terms. We're committed to reduce as much the greenhouse gases related to our value chain. And we will only look at engaging offsets of our residual emissions that can really not be eliminated. And then when you talk about offsets, it is also apples and pears. There's different types of offsets. There are avoided emissions offset that are really, they don't count in a net zero carbon accounting. And there are carbon removal projects. Tree planting is a carbon removal project. Direct air capture is a carbon removal project. And then, it's our view also that if you believe in a world where the carbon price will be $100 by 2030, and that is our point of view, then you have a choice. If you want to buy carbon removal credits, you're linked into the price of those, and the price is going to be set by supply and demand. This is why these carbon credits are so cheap today, and that's why they have a bad reputation. If you believe that this will fix itself in the next decade, then you can do that. But the other thing you can also do is you can be involved in creating carbon removal projects yourself. And that's what we've done at Unilever. We launched a 1 billion fund over the next 10 years, and we're going to be doing projects that is basically creating carbon removal. And then you're actually linked into the cost rather than the price. So that's not just charity, it's also strategic thinking around, you know, being linked into the cost, having control of the quality of projects that you do, because we know that at some point we will need some of these carbon credits to offset the residual emissions, but until 39, we will be very much focused on actually reducing emissions in our operation and in our suppliers' operation and in your home, for instance, by designing Purcell that washes at 30 degrees rather than 60 degrees, and therefore your washing machine uses less energy. And it's those kind of things that in our business we're thinking about.
Great.
Sorry, Euan, if I can jump
Please,
with
yeah.
Marc, because I really want to support the push, right, on direct reduction of emissions. And we were one of the first to partner with the CDP very intentionally on reducing our carbon footprint directly. And this is part of setting the aggressive targets. And so 100% carbon neutrality is our goal. No offsets. I know Marc and Kate join me and others in that ambition. Carbon, you know, offsets are a part of the landscape today, but we have to go beyond that, right? We have to go beyond that. As I love that phrase, I'm gonna steal that, Marc, right? There is no net zero if our consumers aren't with us. And so in how we are producing our products, and then how we're informing our consumers on how to use our products and making those products to have a strong recycle content. And as I referenced, our spot tool gives us the ability to measure that. So I had to put an exclamation on that. Back to you, Euan, I'm sorry.
No, that's great. That's why we're here, and we're keen for this to be a conversation. With that in mind, I'm going to come to Slido in just a moment. I see some questions. When I'm looking at my phone here, it's that's why. It's because I'm checking Slido. So I'll come to that in a second. Before I do, final question, just really open for you all. And it's really about prioritization. So we seem to be in an environment where carbon and climate is the first among equals of sustainability topics. And of course, there are a host of other social, environmental, animal welfare topics that we all care deeply about. And we have to manage the trade-offs between those. Now, there's low-hanging fruit out there, things that give us benefits for water and climate, or climate and worker rights. Sooner or later, we're going to have burned our way through all of those. When we've done that, how are you thinking about how to manage competing demands within sustainability? To figure out how to spend that extra dollar, how to spend that extra hour in the day? This is an impossible question. Who'd like to take that?
I love your ambition that there will come a moment where it's done. There's so much to do across our packaging teams, and the commitment to, right, using recycled materials. We talked about, again, carbon. The other piece, you mentioned it, but Waterloo and really reducing the impact of water on our operations for us is also an equally big undertaking. You know, when you look across the world, the expectation of the number of countries and communities that will have a water shortage and water crisis, we think that water is right on the heels and is a top tier priority along with carbon. So again, I love the ambition and the optimism. I see this is not there is no limit, right? There is no goal, there is no we're done. I think it continues to evolve. Once we hit 100% carbon neutrality, right, then it's on to a more sustainable source of energy. It's about the use of the products. So I see not only a decade of action, but for the next several decades. I would love to hear others, but I think I am not worried about that. I am not worried about running out.
Yes, no, I would love to chime in and completely agree. I mean, I think that this is a critical decade, and the work will not be done either, that we need to continue to double down. And I think that's a theme that we've all shared, right? That our businesses have been committed to this for a long time. We continue to double down, but also there's so much more work to do. And I also think this question about trade-offs is a really important one, and I've already highlighted this, but for us at Google, particularly given the nature of our product, that most of our products are coming through our data centers, we have been very focused on electricity use because it requires a lot of electricity to run our business. That's why we made our carbon neutrality commitment all the way back in 2007. That's why we've matched 100% of our electricity with renewables for going on 4 years. That's why we've doubled down with this absolute zero 24/7 carbon target by 2030, and focused on the demand side too, right? We've all been talking about, yes, it's both about, how do we enable these net zero targets or absolute zero targets, but also just using less. And again, we always look to technology. So we're thinking about the role of AI. How do we use AI to drive even deeper energy efficiency in Google's data centers and then make that technology available to everyone? But of course, it's not only about electricity use for us or for any business. And I think Marc and both of you have talked about circular economy, about our commitments that we share. At Google, we're committed to maximizing the reuse of finite resources across our operations, products, and supply chains, and enabling others to do the same. And we've been deeply embedding these circular economy principles in how we operate and how we manage servers in our data centers, how we run our cafes and our offices around the world. But there are also trade-offs, and we just think about this and debate this all the time. If you want to reuse materials and move them around to give them second lives, there is going to be a carbon footprint associated with that. So that's a trade-off that we're always going to be facing. But often the benefits are going to far, outweigh from a circular perspective, even if there is a carbon footprint. And Rahquel, too, you talked about water. We also have faced trade-offs there. The way that we operate our data center so energy efficiently is that we use highly efficient water-based cooling, but that does still require us to use some water in our operations. So I think this topic of trade-offs is real. It's something we all have to grapple with. And that's why we ultimately need this systems approach. We need to be thinking about the interlinkages between these topics and then coming from this place of materiality within our businesses.
Great,
I'll keep it very short, Euan, we really believe that there is not really a trade-off. There's a lot of interrelationships, and that's also what Kate just pointed out between water and electricity. And I'll give you another relationship, is that you got to be careful that by your efforts to taking a carbon dioxide out of the air, you don't actually put it back by destroying land or destroying oceans. There is very clearly an interrelation between that. And so, but for a company like ours, climate, nature, water, biodiversity, equity, livelihoods, it's all different sides of the same coin. And so the way to deal with one of them is the way to deal with all of them. And I see it as a big puzzle. You really need to, all these problems can be solved, but because of the interrelationships of all of them, it's a puzzle that we need to solve. And I honestly believe we're only at the start of it, with climate, of course, you called it the first among equals, because everybody understands zero carbon and it's very binary. If you ask somebody to explain what biodiversity is, it's far less binary, so not many people understand it. But I think that basically you need to stay focused on all of them, and you need to solve the puzzle on how you can resolve all of them, and not focus too much on one of them at the expense of other interrelated issues.
No, great. Thank you very much. So lots coming through on Slido, some supportive comments. One here, if offsets today fund technology for tomorrow, that means we don't need offsets, then that's a win-win. Really a great summary of what you were saying there, Marc. I'm going to combine a couple of questions. One, someone saying, we rise by lifting others. There is no competition in this space. And someone else asking about partnering with service providers. I'd love to hear your perspectives on very practically how you've worked together, often with competitors, with competitors in your industry, and with corporate customers, with suppliers, to sort of put aside the competitive element just for a moment, but to sit down and figure out the rules of the game and where you can help each other.
Yes, I'd be happy to chime in. A place where we've found, I mean, of course, I completely agree with the premise of the question. I think partnership is essential. And I also think we're in very much what I like to think of as a race to the top right now. There is nothing that I like better than seeing other companies getting out there and making bigger and bolder commitments. I think it is so exciting that that is the moment that we're living in right now. And for us at Google, a place where we found so much opportunity for partnership is, again, on this theme of procurement of renewable energy. It has been a great opportunity to partner. And so we are the chair and one of the founding members of an organization called the Renewable Energy Buyers Alliance. At Google, we committed to 100% renewable energy back in 2012 when none of us quite knew how to do this. Today, we have over 300 companies, many of our peers across tech, but also across sectors that have come together to say, how do we really unlock corporate renewable power buying? How do we enable everyone who wants to set a 100% renewable energy target, not just for their business, but to enable the grid to get to carbon-free energy? So this has been one area where we've seen tremendous value in partnership.
Great.
Yeah, I can't say enough about our Spot tool and how we have shared this with our suppliers who, in the beauty industry, we kind of work with many of the same actors. And we have very openly shared this tool, shared this methodology, because we believe that the more the industry takes bold steps to being committed to measuring the impact, it's good for all of us, right? So almost directly or indirectly, we're giving access to this Spot tool with the packaging suppliers in particular that we've worked with. And we don't restrict, there isn't a level of exclusivity there, because again, it's about our collective thought leadership and collective impact that is going to be required, right, during this decade of delivering in action. So, and I think just through events like this, if I can say it that way, right? I think we're all going to call each other.
So just to support Raquel, I mean, we actually work with L'Oreal on a number of things on stuff that they've kindly shared with us. And together with Kate's company, we are now tackling real-time deforestation tracking, because I understand the previous panel was on deforestation. And one of the things we have to realize is that, for a decade, we've been relying on certification and that has failed to deliver deforestation-free supply chains and commodities. And so, we've basically, and Google is helping us, let's say, through anonymous GPS tracking on mobile phones and satellite imaging that Google, of course, has a great expertise in, and also in the analytics, is we're getting the real-time views of the first mile of our supply chain now. Mm-hmm. And that is a lot of digital technology has unleashed that. And that is a technology that will only work if you work together, because if you do it by yourself, or even just between Google and Unilever, it will probably be too expensive to get all the satellite imagery together real time. And so it is absolutely vital that we work together on a pre-competitive basis around topics. So let's say on palm oil, let's say with a number of providers of capability and a number of users that are very often competitors on the marketplace, but users of palm oil. If we don't do that, we will never crack the issue, for instance, of deforestation. And so I just wanted to call that out, because those are incredibly important game-changing partnerships that are part of that puzzle.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. We started a bit late. We're going to run just a little bit late, but this is my final question. We've had a couple of controversial questions through Slido, so I'm going to paraphrase those a little bit and really think about the sustainability idea overall. And that's that people want to live happy, fun, fulfilled lives, but to do that, they need to consume various different products and services. And it's those products and services that are often the things that have the impact on the climate, on water, on other people. Your businesses, in one way or another, are all geared towards selling people those things that they need and selling more of them, or, okay, in your case, supporting the sales and marketing of those products. How are those business models ultimately compatible with that long-term future of net zero for climate, a reforested, biodiverse planet, and so on? Is efficiency enough, or do we need to look at it a different way?
I'm happy to start off. I do believe that the notion is that we need to go back to lead Spartan lives to basically deliver all of this is a notion that will not work, because at the end of the day, one of the principles of equity is that when with livelihoods and with development and with equity also comes a lifestyle in which people want to consume different things. And I see it as our job to basically make sure that consumption doesn't come at the expense of the planet. And so, of course, you can look at consumption. We're looking at if I take an example of Tresemme dry shampoo that we launched, you're basically telling somebody you can look good 7 days a week, but you only have to wash your hair in the shower 2 times a week, and you have an in-between product that saves you time, still makes you look good, but at the end of the day also saves you the water and energy use in your home. So you're actually driving consumption down. But we believe that consumers will want to make choices on how they live their life. We don't think it's up to us to change that, but it is up to us to, let's say, influence that consumer behavior is actually aligned with the targets that we're trying to set. And we're absolutely convinced that people do not have to, let's say, go back to leading Spartan lives to basically being able to crack this problem.
Great, thank you.
One of the beauties of sorry.
No, please go ahead.
Okay, of 2020 and COVID is it really put a spotlight on supply chain, right? And as
did we lose Rahquel there? Hopefully we'll get her back in a second. Kate, you were trying to come in. So
yes,
we'll
yes, absolutely. I'll chime in and hopefully we'll get Rahquel back. Yes, I was just going to say to build on what Marc said, again, I think the focus for us is putting our technology in the service of this change that we're all trying to drive together, this systems level change. And that's where for us, it very much comes back to how do we partner? Marc mentioned the great work that we've had the opportunity to do with his team at Unilever on palm oil. We're putting our technology in the service of solving these major systems level changes. And that's where we think that we can have an outsized impact, whether that's partnering with businesses, I mentioned the work we're doing with cities, and enabling individuals, giving people helpful information so they can actively make these choices that are going to build the more sustainable future that we all want to see. So that's very much the way that we think about it.
Wonderful. Well, that's a great way to finish. We're just after the hour, so I'm going to hand back to Ed and Alex from here, but I'd just like to ask all of our audience members to give us a virtual round of applause for Kate, Marc, and Rahquel for a fantastic panel today. Thank you. Ed, back to you.
Thank you, Euan, and echo their sentiments. Thank you, Kate, Marc, and unfortunately Rahquel's dropped off, but thanks to her as well, and to you as well, Euan, for handling that very lively and interesting discussion to end the second day of Transform USA. And what an incredible couple of days we've had. So with some incredibly insightful discussions as well. So really appreciate you all joining us for the 2-day broadcast from the whole sustainable business team here at Reuters. Firstly, initially, I'd just like to thank you all the speakers and all the partners as well that have been here over the past 2 days, making sure that the event takes place. So a big thank you to all of our sponsors, Sylvia Terra, Tillamook, Schneider Electric, the Metals Company, Reapley, International Paper, the Recycling Partnership, and Guidehouse as well. And lastly as well, thank you to all the listeners. I do hope we've provided you with some useful ideas to help you in the coming days, weeks and months within your job function, to help push on and to push us all to a more sustainable future. In terms of our events moving forward, we're next in the US in June, actually, on the 1st to the 3rd of June, as we run our global event, the Responsible Business to 2021. This is taking place over several time zones and regions across the globe, with CEOs from a host of brands. And even the Prince of Wales is joining us for an opening keynote. So do join us for that event. Get in touch with the team if you'd like more details on participating. Thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you next time.